So I know that many folks out there have been impatiently awaiting the inevitable devblog video about the rocks and geology of Lost River, the upcoming greatly expanded Lost River DLC map that will be coming out later this year. And so here it is, your wait is finally over. When I started working on the new Lost River map, I wanted to do something different. I really love the granite outcrops in Slough Creek, but I spend a lot of time with those, so I wanted to change. And so I started thinking about something that had a volcanic base with dark basalts, like Devil's Tower in eastern Wyoming. That's way too unique and distinctive, of course, but I did want to have a caldera, an ancient volcano, in the center of the map here, and then volcanic rocks mostly all around the map. And so using an upgraded version, a high-resolution version of the rock models in the old Lost River, I set up this cliff wall on the north edge of downtown, which I liked pretty much, but I was a little worried about if that was really a reasonably accurate rock formation. And then I tried some other kind of rock formations up at the two-step waterfall, but those just didn't, but kind of struggled with that. So then I brought in a geology expert, my son, who's a middle school teacher but studied geology in college, and he said, oh no, this doesn't look like a real rock formation. It's very rare for rocks to be that dark, and it just looks like a weird arrangement cluster of rocks that don't really make any sense geologically. And he pointed me to some interesting geologic areas in the Mountain West that did have volcanic rocks. And so I dug it again, working with a new set of rock meshes, and came up with this for the downtown cliff rocks. And now they look much more like a single large structure that's been eroded away to expose the cliffs. And there are similar, smaller outcrops you can find elsewhere around in the map. So when you're talking about volcanic rocks, it could be a lot of different kinds of rocks, basalt or andesite. But I decided to focus mainly on rhyolite for the geology of Lost River. And so there are rhyolite boulders at the foot of these cliffs where chunks have tumbled off. And they're scattered around the landscape as well. And sometimes they kind of cluster up, like here, where this Douglas fir tree was once a small sapling, and it had this little nursery. It grew up sheltered by this cluster of boulders. This is a real thing in Yellowstone. Here are some that we saw on a hike last year. These are called buddy rocks, where basically some big boulders basically create a little sheltered area for trees to grow. And then, of course, eventually the trees greatly outstrip the boulders in size, but it becomes a nice little shady spot for the boulders. So now back to the two-step waterfall. Rhyolite often fractures in a blocky way, very angular, and you can see that in these cliff rocks, but I wanted a little different type of fracturing here. So what I like to do when making geological formations is start with a handful of large rock models like these, and then use multiple instances of these to build the larger formation out of them, rotating and resizing and placing each model to create a formation that has a lot of variety, but is of a piece, very geologically consistent. So basically built up this big waterfall wall. Of course, a big waterfall like this should have some boulders piled up at the foot of it, so let's add those. Okay, so the geology of Lost River has evolved a fair bit, but here we are. I think this is getting close to final. Geology is something I'm really interested in, but I tend to forget anything I've learned after a day or so. So I'm sure there are geology experts out there who will have some critiques here, but let's just remember that Lost River is a place where unusual things can happen. And this Lost River DLC map is coming pretty soon, definitely before the end of this year, and we'll have more to share about it in future devlogs.